Hello, it's Mark and Pete.
Hello. This week's colourful conversation: charity, home or abroad. So, there are different ways in which people can give to charity. There is donating money, there is volunteering time, and helping a stranger. But what I'd ask you, Pete, is why do you think that people give to charity?
Well, speaking for myself, to just answer personally, first of all, why do I give to charity? Well, one of the reasons that I would give, that is, if I gave, obviously.
Of course.
Theoretically, if I were to give any money away, I would give because of something personal to me. Maybe.
So what would be personal for you, for example?
Well, for example, one of my parents suffers from a blood disorder, so
Okay.
I might give money to a charity that's researching into a cure for lymphoma.
Okay, so you're personally affected. That's one reason.
Well, I'm personally affected because someone I know is affected, and folks at home, I was of course joking that I do give away to charity at least a few pence every year.
That's very generous.
So another reason that I might give would be if my parents aren't affected, but someone else's parents, say, die of a particular disease, I might think, oh, thank goodness that I've been spared that, and so I respond by giving. Because
But is that a sense of guilt?
it's a sense of guilt at being set free from it. In the same way, it's a similar sort of feeling that you notice in people who survived a great war, something like that. They've come back from a war zone, they've survived, their friends haven't, and they feel guilty, and throw themselves into charitable work. It's a recognised...
So you're saying that there's another motivation, which is possibly guilt.
Yeah. So I think guilt because you've been spared,
Right,
is a motivation that's quite common. You feel guilty for not being in as bad a way as other people. It's the same way. There's the saying that parents say to their children when they leave stuff on their plate. Mm-hmm. Think about the starving millions in Africa. That's the sort of thing you hear people say. Now that, although that's a little bit silly because you can't ship off the bits on your plate to the
certainly not easily,
Africa.
but it does open up a question.
But it opens a question: what is the motivation for giving? Is it simply because you feel guilty that you've got food and they haven't?
But then that comes down to home and abroad, doesn't it? Because, for example, you say that, look at all the starving people in Africa, for example. Well, that's a worthy cause, but I suppose the question would be then, should we put more effort into giving for causes abroad, or should we be looking at causes more closer to home?
Well, we've got an audio clip of Nigel Farage when he responded to the flooding in England. He had this to say about the government's response.
And that's a common call, isn't it, at times of need? Don't spend the money abroad, spend it here in the UK where it's needed. And you can certainly see what is needed here in the flooded Somerset levels. Well, last week UKIP's leader Nigel Farage made just that point really about our international aid budget, saying, well, let's divert some of it to help with what's going on here and in other places in the UK. And that was a sentiment echoed this morning to me by one of their local MPs, Conservative MPs for Somerset. Well, I'm glad to say that Nigel Farage is on a visit to the levels here today. He joins me now, the UKIP leader. Very good to see you, Mr Farage. Let's start with that point then. Yeah. You're basically saying let's not spend, and it's a huge amount, isn't it? 0.7% of GDP. Let's not spend that money abroad. Spend it at home where it's needed most.
Well, I think what's amazing is that all the government have done in response to all of this is promise an extra 100 million sterling, but that money is to be spent on upgrading rivers and those sort of things. Not a penny has been offered to any of the farmers or any of the people who are suffering grievously. Now, we can't change the weather, but what the government could do for a tiny sum of money is they could say to people, you will suffer no financial loss as a result of this. And what a relief that would be and a weight off people's minds.
But you'd like to see that come from the international aid budget. That's where the pot is.
It seems to me that the aid budget is about us giving charity overseas. When you've got an emergency in this country, it's time to say that charity begins at home.
So that's a fair point. Charity begins at home. And is that something that we really should be putting our attentions more onto, as opposed to those causes that are abroad?
Well, there's two sides to this question. on the face of it, there's a superficial attraction to saying, to saying, as Nigel Farage did, charity begins at home. That sort of aphorism or motto, you sort of take it as a truism. But is it necessarily true that charity has to begin at home? Well, I think there's two sides to it. One is there's an important point that's of saying that you are responsible for some people. If there are people in your country, they're on your watch, they're on your turf, you should care for them. So yes, you do have a greater responsibility. At least there is an argument for saying you have greater responsibility for the people that are on your patch in your country, because they've been given to your charge greater than people abroad. However, I was just going to say that. However, the other side of it is to say, well, if we believe that all humans are equal, all races are equal, people from all different backgrounds, ethnic, religious, are all equal, then deciding where money goes shouldn't be decided on whether they happen to be of the same group as us. And I think that's where the argument goes the other way. That's the thinking the other way. Like, we must give abroad, we must at least show that we care for everyone. I think that's the motivation.
Well,
so there's two different sides to it.
Then that's a point of conscience, isn't it? Because if you are placing your efforts on giving to charity, to Nigel Farage's point, his argument, rightly or wrongly, was that the government, the way that we manage our nation, is actually placing funds abroad when, in this particular case, farmers in the UK perhaps had a greater need, where actually through the starving people that are in this country alone, of which there is a growing number because of the economy and the way that things are happening, he was really saying that there is really more of a need for today to put the money in our domestic societies as opposed to putting it into foreign communities. So I guess it's really that he's saying really we should be looking closer to home. Is that not something that you would agree with?
No, I do agree, and in fact I agree with his point. My point in saying that there were two sides of it was to try and show where the motivation comes from to give money abroad, which is the current emphasis seems to be that you must keep your overseas aid budget at all costs. Whereas if you then translated that to an individual, and I find when you talk about international relations or relationships between people groups, one sort of thought exercise that helps is if you, instead of seeing the people groups as groups of people or countries as countries, pretend that they're people.
Yes.
Just for a moment, and then you can look at the behaviour of the countries and say, well, would that make sense if it were people? It's sort of a reality check. Now, take this example. If you, like Britain, has a certain budget and you've decided to give a certain amount away to charity, like myself, 3 pence a year.
Yes.
Now, if you decide,
that's still very generous.
Well, for me, yes. But once you've decided that, once you've decided that, you then find that you're in debt.
Yes.
As an individual, you would say, well, no, now my priority must be to pay off my debt. Then I would give away. That would be seen as common sense for an individual.
Sure.
You can't give out of what you do not have. I mean, the biblical way of thinking, with the Apostle Paul in writing to people that they must give, says you must give. You cannot give out of what you do not have.
Yes.
It asks you to give out of what you do have, and in the same way, you can apply that same thing to countries and say, look, if there are needs at home that you haven't dealt with, you've been irresponsible if you're giving it away abroad, unless of course you have a prior commitment. I understand that you said we're going to give that amount to a particular project. You have to give that amount. You've got to be honest and truthful and fulfil the promises that you've made. But looking into the future, planning your budget, when in Britain there are needs that are not being met, we should be meeting those needs. That's what I say. So I'm agreeing with the UKIP leader, Nigel Farage, on this point.
Now, I want to sort of turn it to another motivation. Throughout any year, there are milestones that occur. And that is that, for example, we have things like Red Nose Day. We have, a number of other charities that sort of occur. And they sort of appear on the calendar. Do you think that some people feel that they just want to have a sense of fun, to be part of the community, as though they're contributing that way?
Well, Yeah, I think.
Or do you think there's a sense of obligation that they have to do it?
I mean, I think. Well, I think it's a mixture of those motivations. I'm thinking about things like Red Nose Day, which for our international listeners is a day in Britain where there are various comedy events put on. It's broadcast on television, and people are asked to give. Say you dress up in a silly way, and someone pays you for willing to look silly, and then that's given to children's charities.
Yes.
So,
and just for those people, that the icon is a red nose from a clown.
Yeah, that's right. So,
Yes.
so you're prepared to look silly,
Yes.
and to do silly things in order to make money,
Yes.
to give to charity. Now, because it's a very visible thing that you're doing, yes, there can be an expectation. Oh, I've got to do this, otherwise I'm going to look uncharitable and uncaring.
Correct.
And unless you want to do that, unless you're someone silly who's going to claim they only give 3p a year to charity and want to appear uncharitable,
As if anybody would only give 3p.
Yes. So then unless you're like that, you want to be liked, and so you will join in. So there is a social pressure to join in. But also there is, I think that there is the motivation of having fun.
Well,
it's people enjoy taking part in these big events.
Let me take
national
that. Let's take that on, because as you know, there's a trend at this moment in time. What's perceived as or commonly known as the ice bucket challenge.
Oh, yeah.
Primarily, this is basically a ritual where people are nominated to pour a bucket of ice cold water over themselves and nominate people to give to charity via various donations.
Well, to give to a particular charity.
A particular charity.
Which is doing research
Exactly.
to cure ALS, which
So
is a terrible
there's
disease.
a fun element to that.
Yeah.
Celebrities have done it, and business people, well-known people in society. But is that something which is a good trend? Because effectively there's a victimisation there, because the part of the ritual is you actually nominate somebody else. You're effectively targeting someone. So do you agree with that aspect of it?
Well, I think it very much depends on the people. A lot of people, I think, because celebrities, well-known people have done it, would be rather pleased to be asked, because it puts you in the same bracket as these famous people, and then you do the same thing, and you're joining in something which makes you feel good. So I don't think it's altogether a bad thing, but I think that it got out of hand. Is what that particular.
Now, where does it go out of hand? Because that's what I would call on a broad side. So, in the sense that across the international communities, this trend seems to be growing and growing. So, is there an issue with that?
What, with ice bucket challenges?
Yes.
Well, I don't know whether it's still growing. Do you? I mean, it's certainly very until recently it was very popular. I think there is an air of victimisation, as you were saying. I think that people would feel under real pressure to do it, even if they didn't want to. And there's been, and also a more dangerous pressure, I think, would be trying to do it better than the person who did it before. And there's been a few well-publicised deaths because it became quite dangerous. But the original challenge was well conceived. So this is why I say it's not altogether a bad idea. I think it grew out of control. The original idea was that you poured ice water over yourself, which is an unpleasant thing to do and takes away the feeling, just as the disease ALS does. So, you lose, it's a degenerative nervous disease. So, so you can see that it's got some thinking behind it. And then you either pour ice cold water over yourself, or you give more money. So you give, say, for example, $5 and pour ice over yourself, or give $10 or not. So in the original concept, the idea was that no one actually poured ice water over themselves.
Yes.
You said, no, I'm not doing it because I'm giving more money.
Yes.
And that's where it twisted and became you were showing off.
Yes.
So the people who didn't pour ice water over themselves were the ones who were more generous, like in this case President Obama,
Yes.
who didn't do it.
Quite. Although somebody probably would feel as he deserved it.
Yeah. Well, I think people should just do that anyway. I mean, I don't think charities need to be involved.
No.
Just pour ice water over
Yes.
it. It'd be funny.
So let me move it on to another aspect, which is
Not really, folks.
No, of course not.
We love President Obama here on the Mark and Pete show.
Of course, yes. So we admire him greatly.
Especially when he has power to send bombs over in your direction. I think that's the sort of person you want to keep on the right side of it. Just saying.
Yes. So the point here is that about, you mentioned earlier on in the show, which is about what you can afford. So from a domestic viewpoint, there are a lot of charities on the high street, and as you would do with your 3 pence when you go in there.
Well, it's a difficult decision to know what to spend it on,
Exactly.
who to give it to. Rather.
But do you feel that another motivation for why people would give to charity?
To give it.
Exactly.
Get it right.
Would they see that there is a bargain to be gained? So effectively, that they see charity shops as a target.
Oh, you're asking me whether people
Yeah.
spend there in order to not give money?
Well, no, that they would see that they're getting a cheap
Oh,
deal.
yeah, that is a motivation for using charity shops, sure, because people need to save money. Then this is their second-hand things being sold, and I think that that's a good motivation.
Right.
I think buying from charity shops in general is win-win.
Yes.
The money goes to, if you choose the right charity shop, it goes to a good cause.
Yes.
And you get something for cheaper than you would have done. So,
Yeah.
I don't see it's a problem. If you don't have the money, that's a good way to give. If you do have plenty of money, you could still shop in a charity shop. Shop in a charity shop. Sorry, I bought these false teeth in a charity shop. They're not. I'm wearing them in for a friend.
And it's also like that red nose that you're wearing as well.
Yes, yeah. Folks listening to this will not realise that I'm just wearing a red nose and nothing else to do this show. And,
Yes, and
it's just to keep my spirits up.
well,
And moving on or moving back to the idea of buying from a charity shop, if you have plenty of money, you feel I've got plenty in the bank. I'm quids in at the moment. Or dollars in if you're not in Britain, or if you're say in Scotland and not part of Britain.
possibly.
Local joke. Then you've got plenty of money. If you've got plenty of money, don't distract yourself, Pete. If you've got plenty of money, you could buy stuff from a charity shop and then give extra.
Exactly. But there is also something else that you can do with a charity shop. And you can also buy something from a charity shop, like a book, for example, but give the book back after you've read it.
Give the book back after you've read
Absolutely.
it. Give the clothes back after you've
Absolutely,
worn them.
yeah.
Give the toilet paper back after you've used it. All these things are possible. I don't know why more people don't do it. It's just, I think if you've used toilet paper and you're a bit flush, then you might as well give it back. That's right. Do you think though that people giving in that way through buying things, are they actually guilty of not really thinking through their giving? So, the amount you give will depend on what you're buying. Whereas shouldn't you more be looking at how much money you've got and what the needs are?
Well, I think there is
charity.
that point about your means, because let's face it, you are mean.
Yes,
But
thank you.
there is
That's
also
the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me.
But I do agree.
Really?
There is something that has been raised by a number of people in high-profile society about that if you are an exceedingly wealthy individual,
Yes, thank you.
should you actually be giving a lot more? Now, as a point of reference, there was a recent media interview on CBS highlighting this very point.
According to one recent estimate, the world has more than 2,000 billionaires. Many of them are being asked to give half of their fortunes to charity. The Giving Pledge was created by Bill Gates, his wife Melinda, and Warren Buffett. In a 60 Minutes interview, the founders say the super wealthy need to make a big commitment.
So, there are 2,000 billionaires in the world today. That's a lot, and of course that amounts to a staggering amount of money. Now, the media interview did suggest that those individuals should actually contribute a lot more, 50% of their wealth. Is that right? Should they give as much money as 50%? I guess if we were to scale that down, would you as an individual want to do that? What are your thoughts in terms of how much billionaires should be giving to charity?
My thought on this is that it's ill-conceived, it's not thought through. When you have that sort of amount of money and you give it away, you distort whatever local economy you're giving it into. If you're giving it, so you've got to be very careful.
Yes.
No, I guess I understand they can spend lots of different small amounts. Whereas if you're giving money into many situations, the best way to do it is to invest. So don't give money away. Pour it into useful companies which generate wealth in different localities. Now, an argument against this would be to talk about things like health issues. you could give a large amount of money into medical research to try and solve a particular health problem. That I would say is an area where you could legitimately give a huge amount of money. But even there, I think that you'd be better to give the money in a way that was seen more as an investment in, for example, a drug or medical company, rather than simply giving it.
Yes.
So you do receive money back.
Yep.
So you're not. It doesn't seem selfless. It isn't selfless. But what it is doing is it's giving the company extra funds, extra investment, or in terms of giving, if it weren't that particular health issue, giving into the economy of a particular poor country, whatever it is. But instead of giving, you invest in it and expect to receive returns. What it does is it keeps the company or the country on track. They've got to provide you back with this money. They've got to invest it wisely.
Well, the point here is
so in other words, there's a control over what happens.
well, but they're just
Giving it away could just be frittered away.
yes. So what you're saying is just simply donating money and walking away is not enough.
That's my point.
Okay.
Now that could be the point that they're making. We only heard a little bit of that interview. They could have made that point. But what I've seen of the foundations started by the Gates, they are giving a lot of money away to charities which follow a particular cause or trying to solve a particular health issue, but they're not investing it in with the same sort of business acumen that they used to make the money in the first place. I'm saying use that intelligence for good in the world.
Well, how does that scale? So, for example, obviously something where, for example, Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, who do give money to charity and sizable amounts, but if you were to scale that down to the average person on the street, who clearly wouldn't be in a position to give millions of dollars, however, how do they really know when their 3 pence, in your case, goes into a charity box, how that money is going to be used?
Yes.
They're not in a position where they can actually follow that through and see the return on investment.
No, well, if it's a small amount, I think you should be able to give some away, and it's just given away. Say if they gave the billionaires were asked to give 10% away, brilliant. But I think if they're going to start giving away huge amounts that are going to have that could be just frittered away, it's wasting money. Now, in terms of an individual giving, if you're giving it away, you want to give it to somewhere where it's going to be used for the good cause that you intended. And this is where I take an issue with things like foreign aid.
Yes.
Foreign aid charities. Then a lot of the money that is given is not frittered away by the charity itself, but when it goes to the particular area where they're serving, it gets abused by local governments or local warlords. Even if it's food that's taken, they can then take the food. If it's trucks that are given, then they can then take the trucks. It's very difficult to keep a track of it if you're just giving stuff. But if what you're doing is saying, no, what we're going to do in order to help you, here's an example. Say, for example, there's a particular part of the world, a particular country, which is having difficulty because they've had poor crops. They've had poor crops because of wars in the area, maybe. There are plenty of places like that.
Yes.
What do? Do you give lots of money and send in trucks of food? Or do you instead cut all tax on their exports?
Yes.
So that they can trade their way into prosperity. That's a bit better for two reasons. One is they then have contributed to pulling themselves out of poverty, so there's a sort of a self-esteem image.
Well, they're having a stake holding,
Yeah.
and that's the key. They're not just simply being given a pile of money and somebody walking away.
Yes.
They're being nurtured, they're being coaxed, they're being educated to be able to help them. So the charity cause is being followed through the line.
Yes.
So it's an investment
Yeah.
as well as training, as well as education.
Now, in the past, there's been, I know there's been criticism that foreign aid money has been used, instead of just giving it away, it has been used to invest. And I think that, just call it investment, don't call it aid. That's not the problem. The problem is investing in in companies that are run in an unfair way. For example, you could do the same investment invest in their companies, but then keep the tax levels the same so therefore you don't improve the situation long term at all.
Yes.
You have to do two steps. You've got to stop the putting barriers in the way to their economic growth, and then also invest in companies, invest in training and education for the people in a particular area, and then they will be able to prove themselves, and they will be able to grow their economy, grow their trade, and then they'll be in a position themselves to develop medical treatments, to have great hospitals, because they will be growing in wealth and maybe wealthier, and they'll be able to do the same thing in return.
So that's a valid
It's
point.
a win-win situation.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's always what I try to look for.
Well,
win-win.
One of the other things as well, on a different scale, is that many countries throughout the world do contribute towards charity. That's both home and abroad. Now, an interesting point is that the World Giving Index, which basically uses data that's gathered by Gallup, that's the research company, on an annual basis, they actually accumulate, through a series of philanthropic investments from countries, a set of metrics which basically sets a criteria of a league table of giving. So, for example, there is a league table for which country actually, through this index, actually gives the most. Now, it's quite an interesting reading, because in 2012, ironically, have a guess.
I haven't read this list.
Do have a guess.
Okay.
Which country might be in 2012, so a couple of years ago where we are, we're in 2014 today, so we'll start with 2012. Who do you think, through their index, which is through a combination of GDP versus donators versus demographics versus the number of people in a country, so there's a metrics, who would you think would stand as the top of the table?
Okay, I'm going to give the obvious one. I'm going to say United States.
Well,
number one.
Yes. Well, in 2012, United States was fifth.
Fifth. Oh, but they're up there.
They're up there. Yes.
Okay. Number one is Britain.
No. In fact, United Kingdom is eighth.
Oh, shameful.
It is.
Well, shameful unless we're saying.
Have one more go.
Anyway. Okay. Let's say Japan.
Well, no, it is not Japan. They were 12th.
Okay.
No, they weren't. They weren't even on the list.
What country did you confuse?
Well, in actual
Japan?
fact, it was.
Yes, go on. Tell me, what country did you...
Well, my eyesight is poor. I knew it was Iran, actually.
Okay.
But
Iran,
no,
Japan, yeah, they're very similar.
It was Australia.
Australia was number one?
Yes. Now, of
Well
course,
done, the Aussies.
however,
Yes.
time has moved on.
Yes, I know.
In 2014, it is now the United States of America.
Oh, have they? So they've upped their game again?
Yes, they have, yes. Well, the point being is that it's incredible how some countries seem to donate more to charities than others, and what you would perceive. Of course, everyone would imagine that the United States of America would, by far, give the most. But
You would
again,
have thought, I mean, with the Christian culture
the size of their country
Yes.
to the size of their GDP...
Yes.
is different to how much they're actually giving.
Yes,
of course,
yes,
obviously, in monetary terms, they
American
far
would be more.
outweigh anybody else's donations.
Sure, yeah.
But in terms of the number of people to the number of givers, etc.
Now, what I find interesting about this is that I did think that America would be up there, and I'm pleased to see. It's always nice to be right, but there were two reasons. You see, there's two sides to it. It's double-edged from our discussion earlier. Are we saying, they give the most, therefore they're the most generous? Or are we saying they give the most, therefore they're the most controlling?
Well,
it's
a
because
valid point.
You could see that overseas aid keeps other countries down, keeps them dependent on you. It's like contemporary colonialism. It's like a way of controlling the rest of the world. They remain dependent on you, so you remain the boss.
Yes.
Is that the problem with America, or are they in fact absolutely generous? I'm going to say my opinion is it's probably a mixture of both.
Yeah.
It's a need to be seen to be generous. As I started to say earlier, the sort of Christian culture. Now I know not everyone in America is a Christian by a long shot, but by a long shot. No, there's another phrase. By a long way. A long way. Not everyone in America is a Christian. But there's a Christian culture. The overall culture has a flavour of Christianity.
Yes.
And since its founding, and So there's an idea within Christianity you should be generous and give to charity. Charities is seen as a great virtue, and so you'd expect them to give a lot. But you'd also find as a government that you want to be seen to be behaving in that way, in a virtuous way, which includes giving. So I can see the need to give. But also I recognise that countries outside of America, and countries certainly outside of the West, see America as one of the main countries that is guilty of hegemony, of pushing its way around and trying to clamp down on others who try and go their own way without being under the sort of the heavy hand of America's foreign policy. So there's both sides to it. But there's a way to change. Do it the Mark and Pete way.
Yes. Well, with that
Invest,
point,
not give.
Absolutely. So with that point, charity, home or abroad, well, it's all about giving. So why don't you give us your opinions on what you think about this subject? So more colourful conversations from Mark and Pete next time.
Bye-bye. You can tweet us at Mark and Pete. We look forward to hear from you.